We'll say good morning to Block 1 class, good afternoon to Block 3 class. A little experiment here. The grade 10s in the morning class get me to be live, and the guys in the afternoon get to have a little recording. So we're going to kind of rip through our assignment from last night. We were supposed to draw a couple of arrow diagrams for a relationship. We wanted months in one column, and we want the dates in the other column. If you were really good, you would have wrote all the names in here, but it's January, February, March, and April for one column, or one, and then the days in the month, the other one. Lowest to highest, 28, 30, and 31. January is 31. February is 28. What's March? 31. And April is 30. Identify your domain. You can write domain as a set of numbers. Domain is January, February, March, and April. And our range are the number of days. So the number of days are 28, 30, 31. Is it a function? And the answer is yes. The reason it's a function, domain elements do not repeat. So give yourself 3 marks for this. 1 for the diagram, actually 4 I guess. 1 for domain and range, and is the relation of function. So that would be worth 4 marks to you. So hopefully you're 4 for 4. You could put them in alphabetical order. I put them in month order, so that's in order as well. Page 2. Given the arrow diagram, let's write some ordered pairs. And the rule is 1 is the square of, so hopefully we completed our arrow diagram. 1 is the square of -1, and 1 is the square of 1. 4 is the square of -2, and 4 is the square of 2. And 9 is the square of -3. Again, square means -1 times -1, or 1 times 1. So if we start writing ordered pairs, we have 1 with -1, we have 1 with 1, we have 4 with -2, we have 4 with 2, and then we have 9 with -3. Our domain is a set of numbers, 1, 4, and 9. And the range is a set of numbers from lowest to highest. We had -3, -2, -1, 1, and 2. So again, we can get our domain and range from our mapping diagram or from the ordered pairs. Is this a function? And you're going to say not a function. Some x values repeat. So this is going to record. We're going to post this on our webpage as well. So if you guys ever want to go back and review the notes, you can just press play, push pause, forward, backwards, whatever you need to do to kind of review some of the terminology that we're kind of going through here as well. Page 3, domain and range. What we talked about yesterday was maybe trying to draw some lines on things to try and help us figure things out. If we're talking about a lowest x value, -3 is the lowest x value, but those x's just don't stop. They go all the way to infinity. So our domain, -3 is the smallest x, and they go all the way to infinity. That's a good answer for domain, from -3 to infinity. But let's clean this up just a little bit. So -3 is less than and equal to x. If you want to read it from the x, you would read it as x is greater than and equal to -3. Again, all 3 answers are correct. It's the bottom answer is the answer that we'd like the most, because we like to read it from x, from left to right, if there's only one value there. If we look at the range, our y values, if that graph just keeps on going, there is no top to our curve. It just keeps on getting higher and higher and higher. And similarly, there is no bottom to your curve, so it keeps on getting lower and lower and lower, so it goes down to negative infinity. So a range for this question is a set of numbers, and this has to be letters y. Again, range is about the y's. Because there's no top and there's no bottom, we're going to say that y is any real number. So y can be an element of reals. If you go to the next graph, and same idea, if you start looking at x values, we kind of have a middle x value, but there is no maximum because that graph just keeps on going to the right. There is no minimum because that graph just keeps on going to the left. So again, we can use a domain statement. Because there is no maximum and there is no minimum, we're going to say that our domain can be any real number. You could have wrote negative infinity to positive infinity, but domain is an element of reals is what we really wanted to write here. If we talk about range, we do have a lowest value for the y's. Negative 6 is our lowest y value, but those y values don't stop. So there is no maximum to it. So again, if we want to talk about a range, we can start putting in negative 6 is the lowest y value, the largest y value is infinity. If we clean that up, negative 6 is less than and equal to y. That's the right answer, but the answer we really want to see is greater than and equal to negative 6. Again, we want to be able to read it from left to right because it's just the one part of the expression. So your range y is greater than and equal to negative 6. If we're going to give ourselves some marks for a question like this, we would give ourselves 1 mark for each domain and 1 mark for each range. So we can say there's 4 marks here as well. Did we give marks on the past page, on the last page? No. So let's go back to the last page and give ourselves some marks here as well. A, B, C, use ordered pairs, identify domain and range. Is it a function or not? Let's say that's 4 marks, just like we did on the first page as well. So page 2 was 4, page 1 was 4, page 2 was 4. Page 3, looking at the graphs, domain and range for both those can be 4 marks as well. If we go to the next one, telling the story. Where did you stop your descent? Where did the distance or the depth stop at? So we stopped at 15 feet. How long did we stay there? We got there at 3 minutes and we left there at 8 minutes. So from 3 minutes to 8 minutes means we must have stopped for 5 minutes. The next question is, after that first stop, how long did it take to reach your maximum depth? So your maximum depth was met at 13 minutes. So it took another 5 minutes to reach the maximum depth. How long was the whole dive? Well, you came back out at 30 minutes. So the dive was 30 minutes long. What's the domain? The domain is always the horizontal value, the x value. So in this case, time is the domain. And if you want to say domain equals, and you did like a set notation, maybe you use the letter t instead of the letter x because we're talking about time, kind of make it real. The real answer I wanted to know is that you knew that time was the domain. And if we put the numbers in and put the t in an expression like that, even better. Is this a function? The answer to this is yes. And this should make sense to us because you can't be 2 places at the same time. You can't be 15 feet below the water and 20 feet below the water at the same time. So that's the kind of the logic in functions. Each time value only has 1 depth. A, B, C, D, E, even though there's a couple things kind of happening in some of these. Let's say there's 5 marks on this. So if you had 4 on the first page, 4 on the second page, 4 on the third page, and then 5 way back at the top of your page or somewhere, give yourself a mark out of 17. So make sure your name's on the front of the page. Give yourself a mark out of 17. If you just filled it in as notes, write that you just filled it in as notes.